Tonight, I wanted to introduce you to one of my good friends, Dan Parlegreco from DTP's 2020 NFL Draft Guide. You can find it on Amazon.com. It is a guide of over 300 plus players from this year's draft, so you can get in-depth information for your fantasy leagues or just want to be the most knowledgeable person around when it comes to the NFL draft. Dan, thank you for coming on the show. And the first question out the gate is for those of you who are watching and maybe don't know Dan, how did you get into it?
Yeah, it started 6 years ago now, I believe. And what happened was I would write on some fan sites, some different forums, and kind of do it as a fun little thing I would do on the side. And while I was writing on the forums, more and more of the people that were on the forums asked me to write up more guys, review some more guys. So what I would do is I'd watch clips, and it started gaining in popularity year by year. So then I decided the first year to put out a guide on Amazon, and I don't remember exactly how many guys I put in the guide, maybe 100 or so in the first year, and I ended up selling really well. I was not expecting that at all. And every single year, it's gained more and more popularity. People have connected with me on Twitter. The guide sells each year, and just a fun thing that's kind of turned into a nice hobby for myself that I enjoy doing.
Now, I appreciate you coming on the show again, Dan. And before we get into anything specifically about this year's draft and the two players from Clemson that I want to talk to you about, can you tell our fans how they can get track of you or keep track of you?
Yeah, so the main way to keep track of me is Twitter. To be honest, that's where I'm most active when it comes to social media. I have a Facebook page, I have a website. I'm not as active on those things. So Twitter is the place that I hang out the most, connect with people. So my Twitter handle, it's DTP Draft Scout, and my name is Daniel Parlegreco, and my guide is on Amazon. You type in 2020 NFL Draft Guide, you'll see it there. Actually came out this past week. So I just put it out. I tried to have all the updated combine information with measurements, things like that. And yeah, I pride myself on the guide each year. That's really what I put my heart and soul into the guide. I work on it for several months, hours and hours every single day. And this year it's the most in-depth one I've ever done. In fact, it's about 320 players, 115,000 words, somewhere in that range. So a lot of work went into that.
Now, I love your annual draft guides. Right now, it's out, DTP's 2020 NFL Draft Guide. If you go check that out over on Amazon.com. Over 300 players. That's amazing. Have you always done 300 players, or how did you get started?
Well, the first year I did maybe about 100 or so, and each year I kind of did maybe 50 more on top of that. So every year I kind of do more. So the funny thing is, it's like the words sound like a crazy amount, 115,000 words, but that doesn't include obviously all the games I watch of all the players. So depending on the players, some of the smaller school guys, it's hard to get video clips of games of. I might watch two games, but most of the guys, the bigger prospects, the first three, four, five, fifth round guys, I'm going to watch at least 3 or 4 games of all those players, and I try to get a good gauge of games they weren't as good in, games they were better in statistically, and that really helps me kind of have a well-rounded approach when it comes to each of the prospects.
Another big question I have for you is, did you get a chance to watch any Clemson games this year?
Yeah, of course. There's so many good prospects from Clemson this year. I watched between all the different players. I probably went through all the games, all Clemson's games at least once. Depending on which prospect I was looking at.
So getting into the players for Clemson and specifically talking about one of the most or the biggest talked about player from Clemson University is that of Isaiah Simmons. He has been doing amazing. He had a great NFL combine. Were you surprised when you saw the results from his combine this year?
Yeah, I'm not overly surprised. Not overly surprised as far as the hype when it comes to Simmons. A guy you look at on tape, you watch the games, he's flies all over the football field. He's everywhere. Whether it comes to using him as a safety, whether it comes to using him down in the box, playing outside linebacker, playing inside linebacker, a lineup over the tight end. I mean, the guy is a versatile athlete that can be used in so many different positions. But with that being said, with a guy that's as flexible as he can, the only thing I can think of when it comes to NFL evaluators is where is his best position. I think that's what teams are going to have to figure out, where to use him, because he's a guy that, from the combine, and we just saw the overall explosive characteristics he has. Not a guy that's small, excellent length, excellent tackle radius. I mean, you're not going to see too many better cover linebackers in college football. And in today's day and age, you just need athletic pieces on the defense. And a guy like Simmons is going to be the heart and soul of your defense, but he's also going to make your defense infinitely more athletic and versatile.
Now, I've heard some experts say that it's not a good thing that Isaiah Simmons plays all over the field, that it'd be better if he was specifically focused on one position. More traditionally, like only a defensive end or only a linebacker or only a safety. In Isaiah Simmons' case, he can play all over the field. And in many cases, as Clemson fans know, he can play safety on first down, linebacker on second down, and defensive end going after the quarterback on third down. Do you feel like that's a positive or is it a negative?
No, I don't with a guy like Isaiah Simmons because of the fact that everything he did in college, he played at a very, very high level. I think he's got the physical profile, the athletic profile that he's going to excel no matter where he's put. I think he's only going to get better when he's able to have a defined position, a definitive role for a team. The fact that he did so many different things at a high level in college and against great competition bodes well because I think no matter where a defensive coordinator wants to use him, if you use him in that particular role and he has time to get play in that role and learn the system, I think he's going to get better and better. Or if a defensive team wants to use him as a chess piece and use him in various different roles, and depending on the game, depending on situations, he can do that too. So I certainly don't think it's a detriment as far as his overall draft value goes at all.
Now, there's a lot of rumors now after the NFL Combine where Isaiah Simmons will go. Obviously, people said that he was a first round draft pick, but now they're saying that he's in the top 10, maybe even in the top 5. Do you have any idea of where you think he might go? Some rumors are saying that he might go to New York.
That's hard to say. These things are so fluid, these situations, and I think a lot of these top 10 teams are looking for a quarterback. So we can see a lot of moving and reshuffling. So who knows what teams are going to be there that are going to stand in and pick in that top 10. So I think that's going to obviously impact where Simmons goes. A team like New York that obviously already has their quarterback, you would think a guy like Simmons would be perfect for them, depending on what the teams above the Giants, do. But I think it'd be a great situation for him. I think a situation like that where he can instantly make that defense more athletic, younger, more explosive, more dynamic. I think he could be a really nice fit with the Giants defense.
All right, now transitioning over to T. Higgins. He's another player for Clemson that's going to be drafted more than likely in the first round, maybe in the early second round. What are your thoughts on T. Higgins and what are some strengths that you think he brings to the table?
Yeah, I think you look at a guy that's 6'4", 216 pounds. Obviously, he's got size. He's got a catch radius on his side. So I think when you're dealing with defensive backs, that very few defensive backs are taller than 6'1", 6'2". So I think he's going to have a height. He's going to have a reach advantage. I think a guy that's going to be a red zone mismatch, a guy that can use his size to compete at the catch point, outmuscle smaller defensive backs, excellent 50-50 situations, a guy that's going to work really, really hard too. He's going to battle down the field. You saw sometimes this year Trevor Lawrence would bail out, and T. Higgins was the one working that second and third level stuff down the field, trying to create for himself, create a quarterback-friendly target down the field. I think he's a guy that's, the problem with the wide receiver position is, as we've talked about, is there's just so many players, and depending on where these teams fit these guys in, T. Higgins can go anywhere from somewhere in the first to somewhere in the middle of day 2. We just don't know, and I think we're going to have to see how these teams feel about a guy, but there's no doubt he's got significant talent.
Now, on the opposite end, we just got done talking about his strengths. What do you think some of his weaknesses are?
Well, I think some guys might look at his frame, a guy that can possibly put on some more size, some more muscle with a 6'4" frame, maybe a little bit lanky. I think some of his routes there could be a little more nuance somewhere within his routes. Needs to maybe learn some better footwork at the top of his routes, create through the stem a little bit more. There's some nuances he can work with his route running ability. And I think, obviously he showed he can win 50-50 balls in college, but I think the way he plays, He's going to have to probably get a little bit stronger to compete against NFL defensive backs, obviously stronger guys. He's not going to dominate quite as much at the next level. So I think those few things might cause a little bit of concern, but he moves really well for a guy his size. He's certainly no slouch when it comes to running.
Again, we're talking with Dan Parlegreco from DTP Draft Scout, and his book is out now on Amazon.com. But I wanted to ask you, Dan, where do you think T. Higgins will go? A lot of rumors are saying that he would be a great fit for the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen.
Yeah, I could see that working out really well because Josh Allen's obviously a guy that likes to throw the ball down the field. He likes to give his receivers jump ball situations. He trusts his receivers in those 50-50 contested situations, middle of the field, vertical routes up the field. And T. Higgins, those are things that he excels at. So I think that could be a really nice fit. And, he's got the size, Josh Allen, one of his things that we saw in college and also at the NFL, sometimes his decision making isn't great, but when you got a guy like T. Higgins that can out muscle, can out jump, can outreach defensive backs, I think he's got a really good chance at excelling in a situation like that.
Before you go, any final thoughts on T. Higgins and Isaiah Simmons?
No, I think they're both really good players. I think they both have a chance to get drafted really high. I think Simmons will be a top 10 pick. I would be shocked at this point with how well he showed up at the combine if he were to fall out of the top 10, because guys like that don't grow on trees, and he just makes defenses better. And T. Higgins is the guy that I think has a lot of upside, a lot of ability. Maybe he could work on some of the finer nuances. Not an elite athlete, but a very good athlete and excellent size. And he's going to be a really, really nice receiver for a team. Not sure he's a number one receiver for a team, but he'd be an excellent number two receiver for a team.
Well, thank you again, Dan, for joining us. Remember, it's DTP's 2020 NFL Draft Guide, the ultimate football draft resource featuring over 300 of the best prospects for this year's NFL draft. Go check it out, Amazon.com.